Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. And as somebody who's both interested in politics and who collects model horses, I thought I'd use this opportunity to jump on here and have a quick discussion about tariffs and what they will mean for the price of model horses. I've seen a lot of chatter about this on social media, and I'm hoping that this could maybe clear some things up and gives you guys some understanding about what situation the companies are in. So a lot of the focus in this video is going to be on Breyer because they are simply the biggest American model horse company who produces basically all of their horses in China. So we're going to start off this video with a quick overview of tariffs and what the goal is of them. So tariffs are, simply put, where you tax goods coming in from certain countries, in this case China, with the companies importing the product paying this tax. So in Breyer's case, Breyer will pay 20% extra in tax when importing their model horses into the US. So there are plenty of tariffs that Trump has been talking about, but the one that really matters for the model horses is that tariff on goods from China. So there was a 10% tariff that was introduced on the 4th of February, and on the 4th of March, this has doubled, making it a 20% total tariff on goods coming into the US from China. So Trump's big goal with these is to boost US manufacturing and to protect jobs. So by making products imported from China more expensive, he wants to force companies like Breyer to begin making their models in the US again. So I'm going to try not to get political, but this is not going to work for a number of reasons. So firstly, it is so much cheaper to produce goods in China. If you think about how much Chinese factory workers get paid compared with their American counterparts. So I did just a quick bit of research, and the highest wage a worker in Beijing will be getting is about $3.70 an hour, which is the highest. And that compares with the American minimum wage, which would be at least $7.25, and that will be more compared on the state, and also when you factor in the fact that these are quite skilled workers. And that is even without getting into the cost of everything else, like hiring a warehouse, like transport, like so many other costs. And also, there are labor laws in the US. Even with Trump's slashing of regulations, it's not going to be comparable to China, hopefully. So there's that to think about as well. Also, if you think about the logistical challenge of moving Breyer's entire production back to the US, it is ginormous. Breyer have been produced in China since the 90s. So imagine having to move back all of their molds, all of their tools back to the US. That cost would be absolutely ginormous and would definitely have to be passed on to the consumers. And another thing to consider is that all the highly skilled painters are now in China. The people that have been working in those factories will have been painting models for years, and they know what they're doing. So if you remember what happened when Breyer first moved production to China from the US, none of their skilled workers moved with them, and it showed because there were some very funky paint jobs for the next few years until they managed to get some more skilled painters. Another thing to consider is even if they did move production out of China, there's so many other countries they would go before they got to the US. I've heard discussions about Vietnam, Cambodia. There's so many other places they could go. So now we'll have a quick look at what will be the effect of this China tariff. So the simple answer is I expect prices will go up by that percentage point. So with a 10% tariff on goods from China, I'd expect prices to go up at 10%. So to put that into perspective, a traditional regular run model that is currently on Breyer's website for $49.99 will cost at least $55. And once you add in that other 10% that he's introduced in March, that regular untraditional is suddenly going to be costing at least $60. This price increase is not going to be immediate, but because companies will still have stock in their US warehouses, But I would expect it by fall 2025, I would expect you to be noticing that price increase. Because at the end of the day, these companies are not charities. They will absorb some of the cost themselves, but they will not be able to absorb all of it. There was an interesting interview with the CEO of Basic Fun at the New York Toy Fair. If you're a Breyer collector who's here and doesn't know anything about Basic Fun is the company that produces the reproductions of the 1980s My Little Ponies, and they also do loads of other stuff like Care Bears and Littlest Pet Shop. But he basically said that if it costs more to get the goods from China, then the prices will have to increase. The company will be able to absorb some of the cost, but certainly not 20%. And he also mentioned that if customers can't afford these toys anymore, then they're going to have to look at reducing their range. So I've seen a lot of panic online about the price of Breyerfest this year. So although the prices have already been announced, it does say in the small print that these could be subject to change. However, I wouldn't really expect them to. I would imagine that they already have these models in a warehouse in the US. So I would imagine that this year is already pretty much sorted. Um, However, I would definitely expect a price increase next year, along with everything else in the range and everything else in general. So, the next big question we're going to look at is what if the tariffs get cancelled? So, to be honest, even if they get cancelled or postponed, companies now have to plan for the worst case scenario and assume that at some point Trump is going to change his mind, as he often does. So they will be planning for at least 10 or 20% tariff to carry on. So their prices are going to reflect this. So the last thing we're going to look at is what about the rest of the world? I wish I knew the answer. So I'm coming from the UK. So from a UK perspective, there is a possibility that these tariffs could actually benefit the UK because products that are currently destined for the US will be diverted to tariff-free countries instead. Hopefully, the UK will be able to avoid any more Breyer price increases because I think that another Breyer price increase would be the nail in the coffin for most of the companies that specifically sell model horses. So we've already seen so many close. But yeah, hopefully nobody really knows. We're just going to have to sit and find out, which would be great fun. So, thank you for watching, and hopefully, this clears things up a little bit. It is all very confusing at the moment, and if you have any other questions, I'll try and answer them in the comments.